Hey everyone, for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the new Celia that's going to be releasing for chapter 25 of the story in JP. She's going to be releasing on the 29th after maintenance. Jumping into her kit though, her full name is Goddess Celia and she's a light human. Her slots are 6-star physical, 5-star defense, and 4-star defense and support. Very interesting slots. You don't really see slots like these too often. The extra defense slots will be very good and sustained due to the crazy amount of combinations you can run with her. Her LB7 is okay, but I'd hold off on an expert LB stone. For her skill, it has a 10-second CT, and it summons a kin with 1000 HP up to 4 max. Any kins that are summoned will redirect the damage to Celia to themselves. This is a very interesting concept. It's not exactly unique, although the kin's taunting damage is new. We've seen units that can build up stacks of something such as Angelus or Lilith, but nothing that can taunt damage. It's not the longest skill, although seeing how she can stack 4 max, it'd take 40 seconds at least if you're only utilizing her skill for it. For her arts, it does 20,000 light damage physical and increases all human allies' arts by 30, and for 20 seconds, she reduces the enemy's light resist by 30%. It's a pretty impressive art. It's unfortunate that the art is tied to humans only, but that's not really too hard to make a team out of. And it looks like we finally have someone besides Priestess that gives 30 AoE arts on art, even if only for humans. The light resist debuff is nice, although it's fairly low for 2023 standards. I think something like 50% to 60% would have been nicer. As for her true art, it does 60,000 light damage physical. She summons 4 kins with 1000 HP, still with a max of 4, and the kins will redirect the damage to themselves again. Her summoning 4 kins is really nice since it maxes out the limit right away, although I do wish there was some other effect to her true art, since all it's basically doing is providing kins and nothing else. Maybe a skill CT buff or attack buff, but it's still nice for what it does for her passive. For her super arts, it does 160,000 light damage physical. She sacrifices all of her kins, she increases her crit rate by 100% during the super arts, and then she gets 20% super crit rate per kin that was active at the time of the super art activation. So 4 kins active would mean 80% super crit rate, whereas 1 would mean 20% super crit rate. Very interesting use for her super art. Again, it's not a completely new concept, although we haven't seen it in action for a while, but if you're able to have all 4 of her kins active, you can get a crazily high 80% super crit rate on her super art. That's by far the highest we've seen from anyone, so it's very interesting to see, although it does fluctuate on how many kins you have active. The very big flaw of her super crit rate is that unlike other units in the past who need to stack up something on their art or skill to buff their final attack, Celia's kins not only have health to them, but they taunt all of her damage to the kins. What this means is that if she's taking too much damage, her kins will die, and you'll be left with barely any kins for her super art. 4 kins does equal 4,000 health, and her having 2 defense slots will help her to keep them alive until they're needed, so that is nice. But it does look like her only issue is going to be keeping them alive until they have to be sacrificed for her super art. But if you do manage to use all 4 kins, or even 3, her attack is going to hit some insane numbers for sure. As for her passives, for each kin that's killed or sacrificed, she increases her damage by 30%, up to 600% damage total. When she's above 80% HP, she gets 5 hearts a second, and she has 10% heal amount up. For the first time, we're finally seeing someone hit a crazily high 600% passive damage up. It does take 20 different kins, so it might take a little while to get, but once she is able to fully stack it up, her damage is going to be devastating, especially when you pair it with her super crit. The 5 hearts a second is solid as well and will definitely make her run a lot faster. For her true weapon, it's a 5-star physical called True Shangri-La. It does 12,000 light damage physical. If a light unit uses it, it reduces the enemy's damage resist by 20% or 35% if you're over 80% HP. For the passive, it gives Celia 30% damage and skill CT up and 20% crit damage. I'd say this weapon is a must-have for Celia. Not exactly needed per se, but more so that it'll make her a lot better and reach her max potential. 50% more damage, and it makes her skill come back faster, which is good for maxing out her passive a lot faster. I do wish it had some art gen or something, but it's basically a slightly stronger Richelieu Bikini if you're over 80% HP, but it's still really nice, and not even for the active, but for the passive effect. Overall, she's looking to be a very dominant DPS. She'll have a max of 650% passive damage with her true weapon, or 850% if you count her super crit hits. In longer content where she'll be able to stack to her max, she's going to be insanely dominant. If she had some sort of attack buff, I feel she would be insanely overpowered, like something similar to War God Fenn's super art. They didn't want her to be broken, so it makes sense why they didn't have it, but even with how much damage she has, at the end of the day, all she's pretty much going to be doing is being a DPS, besides her art of course. but for how she'll want to stack her kins, you won't really see her art in action much besides at the start or when it's really going to be needed. Additionally, she isn't really to the level of someone that deserves a pity, because while her damage is really impressive, she isn't too versatile, and 99% of the time she's just going to be a DPS in a comp. It doesn't mean she's bad, just that I'd rather save a pity for more versatile support units, especially since they have a much wider range of uses in multiple comps. And with how her super crit functions, it's going to fall off a bit on stages where she can't crit, unless you bring someone that lowers crit resist. There isn't really an insane crit resist debuffer that's really built for her. If we ever get a light human that lowers crit resist, light Celia will be able to dominate in a lot of newer content that resists crit. But that's not saying that her 600% stacked damage isn't impressive, as even without crit, she's going to shred content, which will definitely be fun to see. Another insane part I haven't mentioned is that her 5-star and 4-star defense is going to make her very good in the endgame as well, since she'll be providing a ton of damage resist support to the team. It'll even help with making her kin live until she needs to sacrifice them for her super art. But in general, 2 defense slots makes her slottable pretty much anywhere as a DPS, since the team will be much safer. It's almost similar to how Saber has a defense slot and is really good in the endgame because of it. That's about it for the video though. Let me know your thoughts about the new goddess Celia, as well as if you're going to summon for her on JP. She won't be coming to global anytime soon, so no need to worry about that. She'll be a very strong DPS damage wise, but I wouldn't personally pity, as there are lots of better units that you could do it for, although I would get it if you did want to pity her. If you enjoyed the video though, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.